We would like to say thank you to all of you for spending your time, okay, in this lovely morning to come to hear a very important topic uh, regarding getting your research published, an author, editor, and reviewer's view. Okay, so today we are very lucky. We have a very distinguished speaker. He is the author, the editor, and reviewer. Okay, so without further ado, let me introduce first myself and the speaker. Okay, my name is Muhammad Fabian bin Nasna. I'm a senior lecturer in Department of Landscape Architecture, Faculty of Design and Architecture, UPM. Okay, so the speaker, he is a technologist, Dr. Sritaran Marutavaran. He's currently a senior lecturer at the Department of Landscape Architecture, okay, Faculty of Design and Architecture, UPM. He was a senior researcher at the Forest Research Institute Malaysia, FRIM, for 15 years before joining the UPM. He obtained his PhD from the University of Copenhagen, Denmark, in landscape architecture and planning. His research falls into themes such as environmental behavior, recreation and leisure, urban forestry, and arboriculture. Okay, he has produced about 70 publications, including books, journals, chapters in books, reviewed proceedings, and popular writing. Okay, and currently he also holds the position as the coordinator for the urban forestry section 6.07.00 under the International Union of Forest Research Organization, IUFRO, Austria. He is also a certified arborist under the International Society of Arboriculture, ISA, USA, since 2007. Dr. Sri is also an editorial board member of an international journal, Journal of Outdoor Recreation and Tourism, CIVR, and recently was appointed as the editor-in-chief of the International Journal on Sustainable Tropical Design Research and Practice, or Alam Cipta. So so we can see the background also very fantastic. Okay, so I think we before we start our session today, let me explain a bit about the flow of this webinar. So during these 2 hours of Dr. Sri's talk, so participant can if you have any questions. Sorry. Okay, okay, participant can ask any questions during Dr. Sri talk. Okay, if you have any doubt or anything that you don't understand about the slides or anything, you can just jump in. Okay, just say anything, Dr. Sri, to stop for a while, and then you can ask any question. Okay. Okay, without further ado, I think I pass the floor to you, Dr. Sri. Are you ready, Dr. Sri?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Dr.
right.
Fabian. Thank you very much for the introduction. Okay, and a very good morning to all of you. Glad to see many postgraduate students are over here. And so first of all, I would like to wish thank you to our Deputy Dean, Office Research and Innovation, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Yazid. Thank you for inviting me for this webinar series. In fact, Dr. Yazid was planning to have like a webinar series for a writing course, writing for how to write and get it published in a journal. But I was even telling him that I think it would be better if we start with a webinar series on like an overall picture of what is publication about, and then the needs of to publish, because I think these are the things which is still lacking among our postgraduate students. Okay, because many of I mean, sorry to use this word, but our postgraduate students are basically you are being programmed. Okay, you need to publish too just in order to get graduated, and because your supervisors ask you to publish, so you publish. So it has been like going on in such a way, which I think it's perhaps we need to change. I mean, the approaches and so on. Because being a postgraduate student, I mean, apart just being a student and postgraduate student in a university, I think you have to treat or even behave yourself as a researcher, okay, as a researcher first. I mean, you need to find out, I mean, what's the need to publish. I mean, because nowadays, I mean, uh, I think all of us are aware, I mean, with these issues on graduate on time, GOT, and even nowadays graduate before time. uh, Personally, I mean, from one aspect, of course, all these things, I mean, it's good in terms of time management. Okay, of course, I mean, you need to finish up your research or your studies in a stipulated time. Okay, because of course you don't drag on, I mean, for ages, because you even tend to lose interest and so on. So from the time management perspective, it's good. But most of the students, I mean, when you chase for all these kind of, I don't know how do they say, is it an idea or approaches, and for example, a graduate on time or even before time, you tend to lose many of the important links in between. Okay, so for me, particularly doing a PhD degree, that is the moment, I mean, you get a lot of experiences. Actually, it's not just finishing up your studies and get a certificate and then done, that's the moment. Because once you are graduated as a PhD holder, once you're graduated as a PhD holder, you should be able to run your own study. I mean, I mean, if many of you, if you're coming back to the academic line, you want to be a lecturer or even a researcher, you should be able even to run the study on yourself. There won't be any guidance or supervision from your supervisors anymore. You should be also able to write your own papers. I mean, and so on. And you yourself should be even guiding your own students in the future. I mean, if you're back to the academic line and so on. So I think this is the moment. I mean, being a PhD student, I mean, you need to treat yourself as a researcher. Actually, don't depend so much on the supervisor. Of course, the supervisors, we should be there. I mean, that's the thing. The relationship between the supervisor and the postgraduate students, it should be more between researchers and researcher. I mean, you don't knock your supervisor's doors, I mean, just to update him or her. I've done this, I've done that. I've done my data collection and so on. It should be an more into, I mean, you must have like a healthy kind of discussion. You should come and approach your supervisors and discuss about your research, discuss about the issues that are going on in your research. It's not just updating your supervisors, that you have done your publication and so on. So I think so. That's the idea of. I told Dr. Yazid, why not, rather than just jumping into what to write, how to get published, why not we start with this kind of seminar of perhaps like giving like a motivation kind of thing, and then so this will be a more into a sharing session. Okay, I of course I will be also will be highlighting on the writing process and what are the things that the reviewers or the editors we look for when you have submitted your papers and so on. But I would like to give an overall kind of picture, okay, because that is important. I think it's very important, being as a postgraduate student. Okay, so let me share my presentation. Okay, can you see my presentation?
Okay, clear.
Okay, okay. Okay, so these are some of the things that perhaps we will discuss throughout our sharing session today. So we will perhaps discuss on some basic things. Okay, the need to publish, and then even which journals for you to pick. Of course, some of you are still confused. There are many journals, I mean, in your own field and so on. So perhaps you're not sure how to approach this kind of issues. I mean, how do you pick journals and so on? Okay, and the writing process, and also the things that editors and reviewers look for when you when you have submitted your manuscript. So what are the details that they look for? And what makes them to either accept or even reject your papers and so on? And then how do you respond to the reviewer's comment? This is also an important important point. I mean, for your papers to be accepted, actually. Okay, how the way you respond back to the reviewer's comment, and also at last to you how to share and even promote your papers once it has been published. Okay, so before I go into the detail, let me just share with you all my um, experiences, okay, as a researcher, as what Dr. Fabian has said in the introduction. I started my career as a researcher in 2003 at this Forest Research Institute, okay, of Malaysia in Frame in Kepong. That was the place that I basically gained all these experiences in terms of research and also in writing. So perhaps I would like to share, okay, my experiences as a researcher, okay, in publications actually. So I made a timeline, okay, just to perhaps to motivate you guys, okay, especially the postgraduate students. This is basically a timeline of what I can say perhaps the achievements that I gained through as a researcher and in particularly in research and also publications per se. Okay, so of course, I mean, as I said, I joined in Frame in 2003 as a contract officer, and I was assigned, okay, under a project, under a Danish project actually. So at that time, I mean, I don't have any project. I was a junior officer, and being a junior officer and a contract staff, yeah, there's so many rules. Okay, you're not allowed to apply for any research grants, and you can't do this, you can't do that. So there were so many limitations and also hurdles for me. So, and at the same time, I was also so impressed. Okay, so impressed with most of these senior researchers. Okay, senior researchers back in FRIM. Okay, back in FRIM with their publications actually. Being in Malaysia, but some of us we think that, oh, we are from Malaysia, so no one knows us, what we are doing and so on. But I was so impressed with most of these senior research officers back in FRIM those days. Uh, they are from Malaysia, but they are well known. Okay, they are well known internationally. Most of the senior officers. They are also in all these internationally known organizations. They are holding important posts, and also because of their publications and so on. So by looking at all my seniors, my senior officers and so on. So basically, this have also made me amazed. Okay, of how to write. How to basically run a research and how to be like them. Be like them, get involved in publication and get your research published in journals. Of course, I mean, deep in all of us, I mean, we want our research to be published. We like to be even be known, I mean, in the publication world. So what I did, I mean, I took some baby steps. Of course, I managed to publish like my first journal in this Yuna Silva. This is a journal under FAO, under United Nations. This was and this paper was actually based not on any so-called really and a research-based kind of thing. It was just based on compilation studies, because I was a contract research officer. I didn't have any research grants and so on. So I don't have any data to publish. So what I did, I did a compilation studies of the historical perspective of the field of urban forestry in Malaysia, how it started, and the concept, how we started to use the concept of urban forestry in Malaysia. So I wrote this paper and I got published, so this was my first attempt. Okay, I got published in this.
好漂亮啊，这个杯子，谢谢。
Sorry. Okay, so so this I mean, of course, during those days, I mean, we don't classify journals, and it was not yet, okay, to be classified. So it is not known as an index or a non-index journal. We didn't have all these Q1, Q2, and all those things yet. Okay, but managed to publish. Okay, it's managed to publish by looking at my all these senior officers and so on. So of course, I mean, as it goes by, I even managed to publish my first book. My first book actually, it was also based on my data from my master's thesis actually. You know, so because I when I was in frame, you know, I want to learn even to be a researcher. You know, a researcher not only to run research but also to get all these skills in writing. So I need to start. I need to start somewhere. You know, so I was basically using my data from my master's thesis. You know, as I said before, I didn't had any research project, so I was uh, um, relying on my master's data actually. So I even, you know, published a book, okay, and also a paper in 2010. It was a Q4 journal at that moment, but now this Journal of Forestry, okay, published by the American Forestry Society. It's now a Q2 journal actually. And of course, and it goes by, you know, when I started my PhD in 2010, between 2010 and 2015, you know, it was a good moment, not only as a PhD student, but that was the moment that I was getting all these emails from the journals to be reviewer actually. So it was, so I would even advise most of you as a postgraduate student, um, though I know, I mean, you guys will be very busy with your research and so on, but at the same time, if any of the journals, yeah, they invite you to being a reviewer, go for it. Okay, go for it. You know, so you know, you get the experience on how to review the papers and so on. Okay, because of course most journals, I mean, they would invite researchers and perhaps academicians, I mean, in order, but sometimes, I mean, because of the limitations of the field or the specification of a particular field, we also tend to invite, okay, PhD holders because of your experiences, not only as a PhD student, but perhaps in terms of your career and so on. Okay, and then as it goes by, I you know, I tend to even publish, of course, papers and books. And the most recent one was, of course, on the appointment as an editorial board members of a journal under Elsevier, a journal of outdoor recreation and tourism. So if you can see the whole thing, I mean, so nothing is impossible. Of course, I mean, you need to start somewhere. Okay, you need to start somewhere. You need to discuss even a lot with your supervisors. Okay, that's the thing. I mean, the first 2 semesters of your studies. Okay, so sorry to bring in all even the other issues. Okay, even though it's about publication, but I think we need to relate with other issues. For example, the supervisory thing and the time management and how you do this. Okay, because you don't see publications just as publication alone. Okay, it should be part and parcel of your whole study process and also research. Okay, so I know for those of you who have experience studying for all these publications, perhaps you have some ideas. For those of you who have not started anything, perhaps you can start to write, for example, systematic review paper. Okay, so that helps even for your literature review and also for your basic understanding of what is your scope of study and so on. Okay, so the reason I'm showing this is just to give some motivational kind of thing. Okay, some inspiration, especially for you young writers out there. Okay, so okay, when we go to, so what's the reason? I mean, what's the reason? Okay, we publish as a researcher. Okay, so for many students, especially postgraduate students, I mean, of course, we publish. Okay, you have this in your mind that you need to publish in order to graduate. Okay, so that thing is already there. As I said, most of you are being programmed. Okay, you need to publish for the sake of getting graduated. Okay, so that is part and parcel of the whole requirement set by the universities. But I believe that all the postgraduate students, particularly the PhD students, I mean, you have to start to behave. Okay, behave as a researcher. You know, there's a difference actually. If you keep on thinking that you're a student, and so you're more relying on your supervisors and so on. So you must have this kind of thing in your mind that you are a researcher. Actually, basically you are a researcher. You need to publish, and why we publish is because we don't just publish, we don't do just research, and towards the end, you don't do anything. So I think that is not good. We don't do research for nothing. Okay, so you need to tell your counterparts, you need to tell your colleagues, you need to tell those who are in your field what has been done or what is new. You need to inform, for example, those researchers in the other part of the world, perhaps in Western countries, in Europe, or even in other continents and so on. So this is a way of communication between peers, between researchers, in your own field. Okay, in your own field. Okay, don't feel that, oh, I'm just a student. I'm just a PhD student. So don't feel so small actually. Okay, so basically that's the thing. In each of your mind, I mean, you have to think that you are a researcher. Okay, in order, once you have done your research, there's a need to publish. Okay, there's a need to publish. There's no point you spend years in your lab and in your field, but you don't tell to the world what is going on. Of course, when we talk about publication, there's so many forms of publications. Okay, how do you inform, for example, to those kampung people or those staying in the village about your research? Okay, of course, you don't share your journal papers. Okay, for those staying in the remote places or in kampung or in the villages. Okay, so perhaps how can you deliver, okay, your findings from your research? Perhaps what you do, perhaps you go to the kampung or to the village and you give a talk. Okay, for example, there's many studies, I mean, for example, in Malaysia, where they look into how to upgrade the socio-economic of the kampung peoples and so on. For example, uh, this solar energy and so on, bring all this infrastructure to the remote areas and so on. So of course you can share your findings to the people. I mean, it is more beneficial. But of course, I mean, we don't show or we don't share, okay, journal papers. Okay, the mode of presentation is different. Okay, journal papers we publish, okay, we researchers, we publish in journals because there is a way or mode of communication between us. Okay, between we researchers. Okay, that's the way, okay, how you convey, okay, your message, I mean, to the researchers in the other parts of the world. Okay, this is not the way we talk to the public. This is not the way we actually talk to the villagers or those who are staying in the remote places and so on. Okay, you can publish your findings, okay, in a newspaper cutting, perhaps a newspaper. Okay, so that will be beneficial for the public and for the general people. Okay, but the way we communicate, I mean, we researchers, is through journal papers. Okay, journal paper, because when it comes to journal papers, when it comes to scientific writing, it involves the technical aspect. Okay, the technical aspect, not only the technical aspect, but your paper has been reviewed by expert. That's the important thing. We don't just publish for fun, but okay. So of course your papers will undergo a thorough review process. So that is important. Okay, that is important because your paper has been reviewed. Okay, again, I would like to highlight in here, there's also many students who just publish for the sake of publication. Okay, this is wrong. Okay, this is wrong. Okay, don't go for quantities. Okay, don't be so happy that, oh, I have published 5 to 6 papers out of my PhD. There's no point. I mean, if you just publish in any of these journals, which some of the journals are perhaps unknown. Okay, so make sure that you have to target for a specific journals. Okay, and make sure that you publish in good journals. I will come back to the issue of what are good journals and bad journals and so on. Okay, so before I go on, any questions from the viewers?
Any question, guys? If you want to ask, you can ask. Perhaps not. Still warming up, guess.
Okay, so okay, this slide actually, I think I have shared What I meant is, I mean, being a student, okay, being a student, I think we need to, of course, I mean, the supervisors, they have to even train. Okay, that's the thing. For example, like in my case with my postgraduate students, the first two semesters is very critical. Okay, the first two semesters is very critical. This is the phase where you need to really confirm on your proposals and so on. You must be very clear about what are the issues, the problem statements, what are you going to do, who are your samples, how are you going to collect. Of course, I mean, when it comes to research, I mean, it evolves. Okay, the changes can happen. It's not something wrong. Okay, perhaps initially you want to take this sample, and then in the middle of your research, perhaps of uh, like in the present situation, you have this pandemic and so on. So you tend to change the type of sample in a different mode of data collection. That's fine. Okay, but some of the important things needs to be really cleared out. I mean, in the first. So that's the thing I mentioned before. The postgraduate students, I mean, the students and the supervisors, we need to discuss, okay, as between two researchers rather than student and a teacher and so on. So we need to discuss it together. Okay, the first two semesters, as I said, is a very crucial. That's the time that I think you need to get you need to grab the idea of what is the problem or the issues that in your research. Many postgraduate students, they fail to see the issues or the problem statements in their research. Okay, they just present. The moment you ask what is the issue in your research, what is the problem statement actually, many they'll just say there's a need, there's a need to get for example, to develop criteria and indicators. There's a need to get a guideline. So you see, it means that the students, the postgraduate students, they don't get the idea yet. They don't have the basic understanding of what is the issue or the problem statement in their research. So with this, all these doubts, I mean, it should be also very difficult in order for you to plan for your publications, okay, publications for your research. And also, it's also important for in these first two semesters, okay, first two semesters, for you to plan with your supervisors, perhaps based, of course, based on your objective, how many papers you want to publish and so on. Okay, so plan it earlier will be better, because you will have in your mind, okay, what to do and everything. Again, I mean, it goes, I mean, it differs. For example, like social science, I mean, those who are in social science, including me, of course, I mean, for social science, I mean, we publish at perhaps 2 to 3 papers, I think the most for PhD students. Of course, it again based on your objectives, and perhaps science or science students, I know you have many lab studies, and you tend to have even the same procedures, but you exchange with different species of animals or plants, so you tend to even publish more papers. So it differs. Okay, but the whole idea is the planning process of what to publish and where to publish in the first two semesters, I think would be better, so that the students would especially the postgraduate student, would also have a very clear idea of what to publish from the very beginning, rather than you keep on doing your research, you collect your data and so on, and towards the end, towards the last section of your studies, I mean, you're not sure how to, you have all the data now, I mean, you're not sure what to publish and so on. So it is good if the supervisors and the postgraduate student, you can sit, okay. So because I believe that the planning process or the planning stage of the research is so much important, actually, because this is the time where you sit and you decide things, okay, rather than keep on changing throughout your studies. Okay, of course it is allowed, but in the minimal form, it is allowed. Okay, so so let's move into the idea of how to pick journals. So as I said before, it will be advisable for the students, okay, and of course with the discussion with your supervisors, to pick these journals. Okay, not only journals, but with my postgraduate students, I even ask the postgraduate student to come up with the titles. Okay, the first two semesters. Okay, after you have done with all these ideas, settling down with your research, you're really sure what you want to do. You know about your issues in your scope of study. You know what is the problem statement. Everything has settled down. You are well versed with your method. You're sure. Okay, what kind of method to use in order for you to do the data collection and so on. Then you can sit down with the supervisor and perhaps think about, okay, I have about three to four objectives, okay, and then plus the research questions. So how many papers should we plan, to perhaps to publish, and perhaps you can even come out because you have your objective. Okay, everything is clear. Okay, everything is there. Okay, on paper, your objective, your research questions. So from your objectives and research questions, you can generate the titles. Okay, you can generate a title. So when all these things are organized, okay, when all these things are organized, so it's really helpful for not only for the students but also for the supervisors to monitor the students. Okay, so because initially we have agreed, okay, you're going to publish 2 papers, okay, with these titles. So where are you? Okay, where are you? What is the status? So perhaps we can also monitor these students even much more easier. Okay, so the issue of how to pick this journal. Okay, this is not something very difficult. Of course, I mean, in each of your field, okay, your field of studies, okay, like for example, if I'm in the field of landscape architecture and landscape studies, of course, there are several journals, okay, in landscape architecture and landscape studies. So, but what differs, okay, how to find the differences actually between all these journals, okay? So what perhaps we can do is, especially for those, I mean, starters actually, those of you who are just getting along with all this idea of research and papers, what you can do is you can visit all these web page, okay, the home page of all these journals and go to their aim and objective of the journal. Okay, it's not the aim of the objective of the research, but the aim and the objective of that particular publisher actually. What are they aiming for? Okay, for example, if I give some examples in here, like in landscape studies, we have like Journal of Landscape Research, Journal of Landscape Studies, Journal of Urban Planning, Urban Planning, and then Urban Studies, and also Urban Forestry and Urban Breeding. So if you look at all these journals, I mean, you can publish, okay, you can publish any studies related to landscape architecture, urban forestry, urban breeding, and so on. But some of these journals, okay, of course, they are very general. Okay, they just open, okay, for any types of papers, whichever paper which falls in that big, big title. Okay, for example, urban forestry and urban breeding. So anything which deals with parks, green spaces, green infrastructure, trees, everything falls into that journal. But for some particular journal, for example, urban planning and urban landscape and urban planning journal, you can highlight these studies on landscape, but they want a particular section, for example, for you to say something from the planning perspective or management perspective. So this differs actually. This differs. The other journal can be quite general. Okay, so of course they have all these types of sections. They have the titles, the abstract, the list of the authors, keywords, introduction, method section, and then results, discussion, conclusion, and references. So this is normal. Okay, this is quite common in most journals. But what differentiates is that some of the journals, for example, what I mentioned, urban landscape and urban planning, they want the authors to discuss. Of course, you run the research in a normal way. Okay, you have to highlight your method and so on. But when it comes to discussion, they want the authors to say more from the planning and also from the management perspective. So these are the papers that this particular journal are looking for. Yeah? Okay, so if you send, it might be good. Okay, your paper is I mean, the research is well done, everything is well written, everything. But if you send something very general and you miss to discuss your findings from the management perspective or planning perspective, they will reject your paper. Okay, so these kind of journals, they will reject your paper because they don't reject it because your paper is not good, but they reject because you did not fulfill the aim of the journal. Okay, so this is the most common issues why most papers are being rejected, because your paper doesn't fall into their priority. Okay, your paper doesn't fall into their aim and so on. So this is very, very important, particularly as I said before, for those of you who are starting to write and you know, do research. Please do. Okay.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay. Okay, so please do visit. Okay, visit the homepage, and take your time. Okay, go through each of these journals. Okay, look for their aims, the objective of that particular journal. Okay, because it is considered like it's basically it's waste of time. Okay, if you know that journal is about, for example, okay, I'm just giving examples in here. Okay, if that journal is, I mean, they want from the aspect of management and planning perspective. And when you send that paper, though your paper is well written and everything, but you know, if you don't discuss what they want from that aspect, your paper will get rejected. Okay, so this is, I would say, is waste of time. Okay, of course, you see the moment, I mean, it goes to the, I mean, it will take to the chief editor, and then when the chief editor decides, you know, whether this paper should be reviewed or not. I mean, at least it takes about sometimes 2 to 3 weeks, or perhaps even 1 month. Okay, so get well versed. Okay, so it is important for each of you, I mean, as postgraduate student, get well versed with at least, I would say, maybe 5 journals related to your field of studies. Okay, you should be by now, especially those of you doing postgraduate studies, you should be able to recognize, or you should be able to just, you know, just name me any 5 journals related to your fields. Okay, so you must get to use all these journals, the style of writing and so on. But that's the thing. I mean, it's important to have this continuous kind of reading process. When you do research, you don't just read in the beginning. Okay, you don't just do literature review. Okay, done. I have done my literature review. Okay, now I want to do a data collection. So in research, the literature review, it continues. Okay, from the day you start to do your proposals until you attend your viva and so on. The literature review, it continues, you know, because literature, I mean, it updates you. Okay, it updates, it evolves and so on. So you need to keep yourself updated. Okay, update. So through reading, you will also indirectly, you will be also be aware of the writing style. Okay, when I'm reading this papers published from this particular publisher, okay, so it seems that this is the way of writing. When I read the other papers from the other publisher, okay, you know, so when you read, you don't only read information. Okay, you don't read information from that particular research, what they have found and so on, but you also have to look into the way of writing. How are these authors are basically sharing their ideas. Okay, I would like to just share, I mean, with you all, you know, when I did my PhD studies. Okay, though of course we have all this internet and so on. I did my PhD studies in 2010, so of course we had all this internet and so on. So what I used to do, I mean, during my PhD studies, I would like to, when I read, okay, when I read these journal articles written by other authors, then if there's any phrases, okay, if there's any phrases which you think that, oh, I should use this kind of phrase or phrases, you know, in my paper. Okay, so why not you jot down? This is what I practice. Okay, this is I practice. If I like, when I read a journal paper, if I found that there's any phrases which is, you know, when you see, oh, this is very nice, you know, rather than just saying the common way, okay, this is the other way you can even convey the ideas. Okay, this is also the other way. So it's good. So why not you write all these interesting kind of phrases, the ways you convey messages when you write a journal paper. So this is what I practice, you know. So for a beginner, I mean, I'm not saying that you need to really copy and paste, but this is the way. I mean, especially we learn. Okay, we learn things. Of course, for most of us beginners, we tend to be like perhaps rigid. I mean, we can't even write sentences. I mean, it doesn't flow that easy for compared to those who are trained in writing. And if you have experience in writing books and journal, so it shouldn't be a problem in writing sentences. But for most of us, especially postgraduate students who are not used to writing process, perhaps you can also code the way other people write. Okay, I'm not saying that you code exactly the same sentence and so on, but you code the way of writing. Okay, the idea of writing. Okay, it's not the same sentence, but the way how people put ideas. So this is some of the things that I noted when I was doing my PhD studies. I like to follow people's style. Okay, people style of writing. Of course, in the beginning, it will be a process. It's a learning process. But once you get the momentum, okay, you get the momentum. Okay, you should write in this way. You should write in that way. Then it makes the reviewers even more interested in your study. Then once you get the momentum, then you will have your own way of writing. Okay, so this is just an idea. Okay, I'm just giving some of the tips, perhaps how to start to write. Okay, so start to write sentences.
Give it a bit of time. I think Dr. Sri got an issue with the internet. Sorry about that.
Can you hear me?
All right.
Okay,
Yes.
can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Okay, let's move. So this is perhaps how you select these right journals. Actually, in fact, I got all these information from this internet, from here, from that. So I combined it and just made a story. Okay, just to share with you all. Okay, so the other things, okay, apart from just looking at the aim and the objective, we should even look at who are the audiences of these papers. For example, who are reading. I mean, who are the readers actually? Okay, who are the readers? So that also counts. Okay, that's the thing. I mean, in order for your paper to be more beneficial, I mean, rather than just publishing, okay, being more useful for the other researchers in your field, you have to make sure that you publish in the correct journal, actually, in the right journal. Okay, as I said before, there are also some good journals which publishes general issues, okay, general thing, everything you can just chuck into that journal, but there are also some journal which focuses on a particular scope of study. Okay, so this is also important. You have to look at who are your audiences actually. Okay, who are the people who always like to quote or like to cite this particular journal, so that's also the way. If for example, if you're doing a study, okay, landscape studies related to health issues, okay, related to health issues, of course, I mean, we are not afford, we don't publish in a medical journals, okay, we don't, because we relate, when you relate, for example, landscape studies, how landscape can, if it's good for your health and well-being and so on. So of course we can publish in journals, okay, for example, Nature and Health and so on. So you need to look at who reads that journal, okay, who often cites that journal. Okay, it's also important, okay, in the the readers, okay, the academic group or the professional group. And the other aspect, of course, the visibility, the impact journals, and also publisher. Personally, actually, I would say, like, if when it comes to me, I'm quite biased actually when it comes to publication. I like to publish in those journals published by Elsevier. Okay, I don't know why. First of all, because I don't know, because I published my first journal in Elsevier, and I have this trust. Okay, this trust in those journals under the home, okay, of this publisher Elsevier. Because I found that many of these journals, of course, we have also other publishers which are well known, which are also good. But I'm quite biased. I don't know why. Perhaps most of the journals related to my field, landscape architecture, landscape studies, urban studies, and so on, are related to these journals under this publisher. Okay, and also look for all these um, impact journals. Okay, impact for me, it's not so much on the impact factor, but it's good if we can publish in an index journal. Okay, why I'm saying this is, so index journal can be either index in Scopus or Web of Science, and so on. Okay, it's good if you can publish in an index journal, especially Scopus or Web of Science. It's good because why? Because your paper has gone through a review process. That's the important thing. Okay, we want our paper to be reviewed by other experts before it get published. So once, if your papers has been reviewed, that is a signal. I mean, it's a sign that your paper has been approved. Okay, have been approved by other scientists in other parts of the world. So that's a good sign. Okay, that's a good sign. So it should be, at least for postgraduate students, try to publish in index journal. Okay, try to publish. Don't just publish for the sake of publication. Don't just go and publish in all these other journals who are perhaps not indexed. I mean, they're not known. And then the other issue I would like to highlight in here is also, don't chase for numbers. Okay, don't chase for numbers. Unless, I mean, if you have a lot of objectives, then it's fine. But be very specific. Just nice. I mean, for example, like I'm from the social science. To publish 2 or 3, okay, 2 or 3 good papers, very good papers in a very good journals for your PhD is already sufficient. It's good enough. Okay, there's no need to publish 5, 6, and 8 journals for your PhD. And you know if you can, I mean, it's not something impossible. I mean, if you can publish, then why not? But of course, it depends on the scope of your study. Okay, but the most important thing, if you want to publish 8 or 9 journals, it's fine, but make sure that you publish all these findings in good journals. Yeah, especially for those PhD students. I mean, after getting your PhD, of course, most of you will be like coming back to the academic line, being a lecturer, or even go back to the research line, being a research officer, and so on. So it is good. Okay, so the papers that you publish during your postgraduate studies can be as a starter. Okay, it's a good starting point for you to start your career as a researcher. So start with something very good, or with the quality. Okay, I'm not saying that you have to straight away publish in a Q1 journal. For me, Q1, Q2, and all this thing, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you publish in a Q1 journal, it's good. Of course, it's good, but the idea that most of our postgraduates need to get is start to publish in an index journal first. Okay, index journal first. Okay, index journal first, and so, and work together with your supervisors. Okay, the supervisors, I think, plays an important role when it comes to publication. I mean, it's only not. I mean, it's just not putting your names on your students' paper. I think the supervisors, they need to play a role, okay, an important role in the students' publication. Okay, so that's the thing. As I mentioned before, as a postgraduate student, you need to constantly discuss with your supervisors and so on. Try to update your supervisors about your research. Okay, don't think that, oh, am I disturbing my supervisor? Don't think all this. That's the thing. I mean, the relationship should be like between two researchers. It's not you as my student, I'm more superior than you, or it's not that issue. It's, we are discussing as a researcher. I mean, as a that's an important thing. So when you send, for example, updates to your supervisors, don't just send like, okay, Dr. So and so, okay, Dr. Sri, I found a new article. Done. So please, write more, say more to your supervisors. I mean, write a summary. Okay, you found a new paper, so what? Write a summary. Write perhaps like a short summary. Okay, this paper focuses on this aspect, and when I read the paper, they are using a very interesting research method that perhaps I would like to apply in my research. What is your opinion? That kind of discussions that you need to develop, okay, between with your supervisor. It's not just updating him or her. I've done this, I've done that, and then of course, you won't get any reply from your supervisors. Okay, in order for you, your supervisors to react or reply, you should perhaps start this conversation. Okay, it should be an ongoing kind of thing, the discussions. Okay. Okay. Any questions?
Yes, Tasri, there's one question from the
Okay. Yeah.
students. Okay. Sorry, from the
Yes.
participants. From Iba, I think. Iba, do you want to ask Dr. Sri? Iba? Iber? No. Okay. Iber asked about Doctor, how to remain clear thinking while writing the thesis. A paper, what?
How to
Okay.
remain clear thinking? Perhaps I think, how to remain clear thinking. Yeah. So I'm not a psychologist, but perhaps I can perhaps answer from my experience. That's the thing. You see, most of the postgraduate students, of course, you have this disturbed kind of mind. Okay, because sometimes, of course, along the process, you tend to change this and that, and then the supervisors might be asking, oh, no, 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 you have to use this method. And then next month, oh, no, no, you have to change another method. And so, of course, all these things, it disturbs, okay, it disturbs of your process as a researcher, and also in terms of your writing, okay. So that's the thing, like in my practice, what I do is, that's the thing, the first 2 semesters, okay, don't go for any data collection. Don't jump into all this. Oh, okay, I want to come up with this questionnaire and I want to start to do data collection. Don't do anything yet. Okay, the first 2 semesters for me is very crucial. Okay, this is a time where I think the lecturers, I mean the supervisors, and have even more tasks to be done. Okay, because once the initial part is clear, then the supervisors can perhaps let the students go freely, and you can just go out and do your data collection and whatever you want. But I think the first 2 semesters, I think you must be very clear of what you want to do, actually, what you want to do, particularly on the research issues. You must get in an idea what is your research problem, because you need to get this research problem first. I mean, you must have a problem statement in order to run a research. I mean, we don't do research for no reasons. I mean, you must have reasons, and you should be able even to highlight what are these reasons. Okay, for example, you should be able to give some statistics. Okay, the issues are going up. For example, the cases of COVID-19 is going up. So that is an issue. The number of people dying are also me, and according to the United Nations, they are saying that so and so percentage of people are also dying even after getting vaccinated. So all these things are the issues, actually, the issues for any for a research. Okay, so I think in terms of before going to publication, before writing even in your thesis, I think you need to clear out these things from the very beginning with your supervisors. Okay, that's the thing. I know some of the postgraduate students, they're so anxious in doing data collection as soon as possible. They want to finish up the data collection so that they can graduate on time. Okay, so so for me, take time. Okay, that's the thing. When you're chasing, when you're chasing time, you tend to lose all this important process that should be clear up from the very beginning. Okay, before you even start to do that. There's no point after you're collecting your data, then you realize, oh, I should have collected in such a way, or I should have done this analysis first before going to this. There's no point. That it's too late. Okay, so to answer your question, to have a clear mind, you before you start to even write, you have to make sure that what is your research about. Okay, you must have a basic understanding of what are you doing, actually. But that is the idea. What are you doing? I mean, what is the main issue, and what are the research questions that you should be you are going to answer towards the end of your study. So I think once this is settled, okay, once these issues with your objectives, your research questions, your research issues, your problem statements, all these things, your type of method, what kind of method do you want to use? What do you want to use, this or that? Who are your samples? What kind of plant samples, or people, I mean, human beings, or even animal samples, or whatever research that you do. Okay, so I think when it comes to writing, okay, you will have a peaceful mind if you can settle up with these initial issues, which is in your research proposal, I think. So the first 2 semesters is very crucial. I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr.
Yes,
Sri.
Abel. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Any more questions?
Guys, any more question to ask? All right. Okay, you can proceed, Dr. Sri.
Okay. Okay, let's move to the next part. Okay. How to write a research paper. Okay. So I won't be getting into the details of, for example, how do you start, how do you write an abstract, how do you write your introduction part, and so on. Perhaps we can have this in another series and so on. But if you look, I mean, at this slide, this is a general process. Okay. So once but if you see, I mean, the first box up there, complete your research. Once you have completed your research, you prepare a manuscript. But for me, it can be also and it can be going hand in hand. Okay, it doesn't mean that you need to complete your research in order to prepare a manuscript. You can prepare a manuscript while you are doing your research. Okay, perhaps the introduction part, the research method part, and so on. You can even do. I would advise most of my postgraduate students to do this, to follow this kind of approach. Okay, when you start to write a paper, okay, or we call it a manuscript. When you start to do a manuscript, okay, start to do the initial part. Okay, because the introduction, okay, the introduction. Okay, so in general, most of these papers, we have the introduction, some they have the background, you know, and then they go to the literature review, and then we have the research method, the method section, the results discussion, conclusion, acknowledgement, reference. So this is a common sections, okay, that you need to have in a research paper or in a manuscript. Okay, so what we can do perhaps while waiting to collect your data and so on, because as I said before, because everything was clear. Okay, you have discussed with the supervisor. Okay, I'm focusing only to publish 2 papers. Okay, I'm focusing only for 2 papers. So okay, if you're starting with your paper 1, why not you start to write your introduction and your method? Okay, because your introduction is basically your literature review. Okay, and which you have done in your first 2 semesters, your literature review, because that is the main chunk. Okay, in your first 2 semesters, you do more readings. Okay, you do more readings, you get to know about what is going on in this field of studies and so on. Okay, so you have done. So basically, you can prepare. Okay, so of course, like, and then once you have prepared, okay, the manuscript. Nowadays, I think almost most of these journals, they have the online submission. Okay, the online submission, so it's easy for you to just upload all your papers and so on in your system. But during those days, even I mean, you know, when I say during those days, I'm not that old, you know, but even when I submitted my first paper in 2003, okay, back when I was in frame, okay, I wanted to send this paper, okay, to this journal in America, okay. So at that moment, they didn't have all these online kind of thing, okay, online submission. So I need to print out, okay, I need to print out my manuscript and then go to the post office, put it in an envelope, and then you have to weigh and then send it to, you know, through the snail mail, okay. So this was the process of submitting paper, okay, during those days. But of course now it's quite easy. I mean, you have all this online system and everything is online, okay. So I'm aware that those of you who have experience of submitting papers, especially the postgraduate students. So I think you're quite well versed with the online thing. Okay, you go to the web and then you submit your papers online and so on. Okay, but what should be, I mean, perhaps the content of the manuscript, that is the important. Okay, so in here, if you can see good quality of images, tables. Okay, if you can prepare, for example, a flow chart would be also some attractive points. Okay, these are the things. Okay, for example, for me as a reviewer, these are the things that I look for. Okay, if you just gave me a chart, okay, okay, number of trees that being surveyed, okay, in this particular city, in that particular city, and so on. For me, why do you need to present in a chart? Why do you need to present in a form of figure? You can just say it, I mean, in in a sentence, you know. So because when it comes to publication, we need to even look from the aspect as a editor point of view. We even need to save some spaces, because if your paper gets so long, you know, it's even more expensive. I mean, it gets so expensive. So we need to cater, for example, because this is all in the more administrative work. Okay, as an editor, we have to also make sure that, okay, for this volume, we need to have at least 5 to 6 papers. And if one of two of these papers are too long, so it's taking other people's places actually. So you have to make sure, okay, if the figure is really important, then you add the figure. If it just says that, for example, like with the caption, okay, this is the site where I did my survey. So if it's not giving any extra information, then you don't put in your manuscript. It's a waste of space. Okay, you put a figure or you put a table if it has some significant importance. Okay, if it's something very simple, for example, percentages and so on, you can just say it in the form of sentences. There's no need to express in the form of table and figures. Okay, but try to bring in, for example, for me as a reviewer, when I check or review the manuscript, I would like to see, for example, flowcharts. Okay, for example, conceptual framework. Okay, or theories. Okay, for example, in the introduction part, I would like to see this kind of. So, for example, like in from a social science perspective, of course, you know, when you write a literature review, you also add the theoretical aspect and so on. And it was also good to add all these conceptual framework. Okay, a conceptual framework is an added bonus actually. Okay, it's an added bonus. Okay, for if you had a conceptual framework, if you have a conceptual framework in your paper, that's a good thing. Okay, so these are the things that the reviewers look for. You know, these things like, have you mentioned anything about what's the theory behind your studies? You know, it's not just a bunch of you know, just a bunch of literature reviews, but what are the theories behind your study? Or is there any conceptual framework that you can perhaps share with the readers? Actually, these are the things that we as a reviewer or we look for. Okay, so so of course, I mean, you upload, okay, your paper in your journal, okay, and you get reviewed. Okay, but before you get reviewed, your manuscripts, okay, the moment you send your papers or your manuscript online, it will be viewed by the chief editor. Okay, the chief editor of that particular journal. So what we do is that for example, when I get a new proposal, a new manuscript, okay, from someone, for example, from 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 Hong Kong, you know. So what I do, for example, I will look at the title. Okay, I will look at the title. I will read the abstract, and I will also I will also look at the methods. Okay, this is the thing for me. Okay, personally, these are the sections that I look the most. Okay, of course, literature review is basically, I mean, yeah, you know, you find the same person. You know, this person have done that. Then another person have done this. So it's quite common. You will tend to get the same references. Okay, because you are in the same field, because you're quite well versed with the. So I don't look so much on the literature review, but I will look at the title, the abstract, and also I'll read their method. Okay, if this paper, it suits the aim. Okay, if the method section is good, then I will tend to accept the paper. Okay, if not, we will have another, what we call it as a desk rejection. So you will get a rejection even at the editorial, you know, even at the chief editor level. Okay, this is not good. Okay, this is not good actually. I mean, if you, so it means that perhaps your paper is poorly written, or either your paper doesn't fall in their aim. Okay, in their aim of that particular journal. So you get a desk rejection from the editorial chief editor. Okay, but if your paper sounds, I mean, good, I mean, with a very sound kind of as a method approach, I mean, it's very good, and it fits their aim, then the chief editor will pass the manuscripts to the reviewers to review. Okay, and of course, nowadays most journals, when you submit your paper, they also ask, can you please suggest or 2 or 3 reviewers that you know who are related to this field. Okay, but for me, okay, for me as a reviewer, or as even as a associate editor, okay, I don't pick those reviewers that being suggested by the authors. Okay, I always I used to pick my own, because sometimes it can be biased. Okay, sometimes the authors might be suggesting their own colleagues, their colleagues, or their the office mates, and so on. So of course, I mean, it's the procedure. Okay, it's in the system that the author, you need to suggest. But as a chief, as an editor of a journal, I would like to pick my own reviewers for your papers and so on. Okay, so 2 or 3 experts, okay, will be picked to review your work actually. Okay, so we will discuss about later what the reviewers will do and so on. Okay, so then perhaps after maybe 2 to 3 months, you will get this decision whether your papers is being accepted or need to be improved or even rejected, and so on. So this is basically, okay, I just run through very fast, okay, about the publication process. I think this is the next important part. What are the editors and the reviewers look for? Okay, so once you have submitted your manuscript, okay, so now it's at the desk of this editorial board. Okay, the chief editor will look at your title and so on, and of course the abstract. But I don't just read the abstract and title. I also will look at the method section. Okay, method section. And the other important element that I would like to stress in here is, please pay attention to take your time to prepare the cover letter before you submit your manuscript. Okay, I think most of the journals nowadays they require you, before you send a manuscript, they require you to submit even a cover letter. Okay, a cover letter. Okay, and take the opportunity, because the cover letter is a venue, is a platform for you to tell. Okay, to basically to tell the editors, okay, to what is your aim. Okay, what is the aim of this study, what you have done, what is so special, and why is it need to be published, and so on. So this is the venue. Okay, and we editors, okay, or associate editors, we do read the cover letters. Like I read cover letters. Some of the cover letters are very simple. The most of these authors, what they do, they just write a cover letter saying that, okay, dear chief editor, okay, I'm interested to submit this title to your journal. That's all. Okay, but you don't say anything else. So it's good if you can take your time to write a complete cover letter, but rather than just saying that, okay, I'm interested to send this paper to your journal at the end. Say something about your research. Why is it important, I mean, this research to be published? What is the important component that you would like to highlight? Why your paper differs from the other papers which have been published before? These are the important things. These are the, so you see, so basically you will get you need to get the interest of this chief editor. Okay, so you can get, so perhaps the chief editor will even get an idea. Oh, okay, so basically this is the paper. This is about what is the paper looks like, and this is what the paper would like to highlight. Okay, and the paper, this paper, even though it sounds so similar with other papers which I published before, but what are the differences that the authors would like to highlight in this paper? Okay, so that is the reason to have a proper cover letter. So I would like to advise to most of these postgraduate students, take your time. Okay, please take your time to really compose a very good cover letter to the chief editor. Okay, most of the chief editor, we do read. Okay, we do read the cover letters, because the cover letter is the venue or a platform where you can sell. Okay, you're selling your manuscript, okay, to the chief editor. This paper is important, it should be published, and why. Okay, so please take note on this matter about the cover letter. So that is the things perhaps I can say from the editorial perspective. Okay, so perhaps we can go into, okay, the review process. Okay, the review process. Okay, so what are the things that the reviewers look for? Okay, what are the things that the reviewers look for. So when you submit your manuscript, okay, like for me, okay, as I said before, I just, this is not something very it's very rigid kind of system. If you want to review paper, this is how you have to review and so on. Of course, each one of us, of the reviewers, we have our own style to review the papers. Like for me, basically what I do, okay, of course, I read the title, I look at the abstract, okay, the abstracts to get an overall picture. And what I do, I will skip the introduction part or the literature part. I will go straight away to the method section, okay, which because I give more emphasis on the method section. If your method section it's wrong, then the whole thing will be will be just just an empty paper. It doesn't mean anything. So this is how I review. Okay, I look at the title, okay, the abstract, and your method section. So when your method section is fine, then of course I will go to the other sections. I will go to your literature review, your results and discussion, and also your list of references, and with your conclusion. Okay, so when we talk about the title, okay, when I have gone through your paper and I have read through your paper, then I will come back and look at your title. Okay, so make sure that when you prepare a manuscript, okay, when you prepare a manuscript and it is very localized, okay, when your paper, okay, it's a case study, for example, you have done a study, a case study, for example, in Putrajaya. So make sure that you put the word Putrajaya somewhere in your title. Okay, somewhere in your title. So this is important, because when it comes to the discussion, okay, a case study is a case study. Okay, when it comes to a case study and so on, I mean, of course, you're not able to make a generalized kind of statement. Whatever your findings, I mean, it suits for that case study, which is Putrajaya. Perhaps you can apply in other cities, but perhaps you can't. Okay, because this is a case study which is focused on that particular zone or site. So this is very important, okay, because some authors, it is a case study. When it comes to discussion, it's like they generalize their findings. They generalize as if that this thing or a method or findings can be even applied in other parts of the world and so on. So this is not appropriate. Okay, this is not appropriate. Okay, if you're doing a case study, make sure that your discussions, you restrict yourself. You need to restrict, because this is not a general kind of study. This is a case study, actually. Okay, this is a case study. So all these things should be highlighted in your title. Okay, for example, I would like to share one recent paper which I reviewed, I think 2 months ago. That paper, I mean, it's from Sweden. Okay, from Sweden. So that paper, in that paper, the researcher only surveyed one park, okay, one particular park, okay, one particular park. But when you read the title, as if it sounds like this researcher have looked into several samples, samples of park in that country, and because the title looks as if that they have done a very big, huge research or study of the urban parks in Sweden. But when you read the method section, the author have only focused on one particular park in that particular city. So I think it's not fair. I mean, of course, in terms of research, it's okay. I mean, if you do a research in just one particular park, it's fine. Okay, in terms of the method, okay, perspective, it's okay. But you have to tally also with, if you are looking at only one particular park, okay, your discussion should not sound so globally. I mean, you cannot say that, okay, from my study, I mean, it answers, everything. It solves the problem in all the urban parks in this world. I mean, you can't generalize your findings. That is not appropriate. Okay, because your sample, you were only looking at one site, one particular site. So how can you just, I mean, generalize, by saying that, oh, it's also this will be also the same pattern, that will happen even in Malaysia, in India, in Hong Kong, in China. How do you know? Because when it comes to your study, your site is only one. You have only one site. How on based on one site you can generalize your idea. So these are the things we reviewers will also look for. Does your research, the overall research, tallies with your title or not? Okay, so then if not, then perhaps you have to change the or amend the title. Okay, make it sound more perhaps a case study in that particular country, rather than generalizing the issue actually. Okay, so the other things like for example, your abstract, an abstract also in an important section. You need to explain about all the elements. For example, the first two lines, of course, you can say some introduction, but don't ever please include literature reviews in your abstract. Okay, I've seen a lot of manuscripts where some of the authors, they even add literature review. I mean, sorry, references. Okay, references in abstract. This should not be done. Okay, it's wrong. Okay, you shouldn't do this. Okay, you shouldn't do this in an abstract. It should be a summary of your research. It's your research, so you should write the whole section of the abstract in your own words. In your own word, what is your research about? I mean, why are you quoting other people's studies and so on in abstract? In an abstract, it's a section which is given for you to explain about your own research. So why are you adding all these citations, references in your abstract? Okay, so remember that when you write an abstract, okay, perhaps the first two sentences you can just give like an introduction kind of thing. Okay, and this straight away you should be able to jump to the what is the aim. Okay, you should be able to say the aim of your study, what is the objective, what the method, and highlight the important results only. Okay, the important results related to your objective or your aim, and also few lines at the end, some conclusions or recommendations or what need to be done in the future. So that's how basically you write an abstract. Of course, I mean these details, how to write abstract, how to write an introduction. Perhaps yeah, I mean we can do it perhaps in another session even more in detail. Okay, and then let's move into our introduction part. Okay, the introduction part, as I said before, as a reviewer, I would like to see the theoretical perspective. Okay, I would like to find what is the theory behind your studies, especially for social science students. Okay, you need to add the aspect of theory. It's not just literature review, okay, but you also have to explain from the theoretical perspective. Okay, your research is based on what theory? Can you explain? Okay, do you have any conceptual framework? Okay, so these are the things that I will look for. Okay, I'll look for in your literature review or in your introduction section. And when it comes to the method section, okay, I would advise it would be even better if you can explain your methods in subtitles. Okay, for example, you have a big heading. Okay, you have a big heading, for example, method, and then underneath you can put all these like what for example, site. What is your research site? And then give a map. Okay, give a map, because for example, if you're saying that okay, you have my research site is in one of these recreational forests in Ottawa. I have no idea. Okay, perhaps some of the readers, they have no idea where is Ottawa, on the map. So give a map. Okay, a map which gives where is your study sites and so on, because this will be helpful for the readers. Okay, not everyone knows where are your form and so on. Okay, this is quite common. I mean, just to share my experience with you all, it's quite common with all these, for example, developed countries. Right? They have this in their mind that everyone knows. For example, everyone knows where is Washington. Everyone knows where is Nevada. Everyone knows where is this place and so on. I mean, this is quite common among those authors from all these developed countries. Okay, so these authors, I mean, those they are from America, UK, and so on, they tend to miss the important thing, which is the map. Okay, of course, I know where is America, but I'm not very sure about where is Mississippi. America is so huge. Even Americans, they don't know where's Mississippi or where's um, Washington or Washington DC and so on. So it is important to put your site map, okay, your site map and so on. I mean, for the case for those of you who have sites. Okay, so it's important to put all these sites. So these are the details. Okay, that I will look for. Is your site is clear? If your site, if you're saying that you are done a study in Kuala Lumpur, which part of Kuala Lumpur can you highlight in a so it's a vice versa. Okay, you even those authors from Malaysia, you need also have to share your map, your site map, and so on. Okay, don't just give the map of, for example, for the map of Selangor. I mean, of course, you need to give the map of the whole, for example, perhaps the map of Semenanjung, Tanah Semenanjung, and then perhaps you give the map of, you make it enlarge and then focus on Selangor. If you give just a map of Selangor, people even, those staying in the far western countries, Europe, Canada, and so they even might not know where is Selangor, So give an overall picture. Okay, Malaysia, this is Selangor over here, and these are my study sites. Okay, so these are the things that we reviewers look for. Okay, so and it's very important when it comes to the method writing. It is important to write your method section in subtitles. Okay, as I said before. Okay, write your subtitle, your first subtitle. If you have a site, okay, you can write a site, and then who are your samples. Explain about who are your samples, how your sampling procedures. If there's no sampling procedures, if you don't explain why are you focusing on this particular group of samples, why not the other group of it, then there's also as a high potential for your papers to get rejected, because you should be aware that each of these good journals we get monthly, we get thousands and thousands of manuscript. Okay, so you don't afford to make any small mistakes actually. Okay, because if you do all these small mistakes, I mean, of course, I mean, people will give like for me as a reviewer, I will ask the papers to be amended. Okay, of course I don't reject. I mean, because we know sometimes the authors, I mean, they know about, I mean, the sampling, but it's not just written there. But that's the thing. I mean, when you write a manuscript, you always have to keep from the perspective of the reader. Okay, if I write this sentence, does the general readers out there, would they be able to understand me or not? Okay, so always keep in your mind what the other readers will think. Okay, how do they understand? Are they able to understand what I have written? So always keep always keep in mind what from the perspective of the readers. Okay, the reader's perspective when you start to write. Okay, then when we go into the results and discussions, of course, so sometimes we can merge results and discussion together. I prefer this. Okay, because when you give the results, you can discuss at the same time rather than having a separate section. But it depends on the journal. Some journal they insist to have a result section, and then they have a discussion session later. Okay, and for the result, I think it shouldn't be a problem. You just highlight what are your findings and so on. But the important thing is your discussion. Okay, when it comes to discussion, you need to argue. This is the place that where you need to say whether your findings are similar with the other research, or are there any differences. If there's any differences, you should be able to even say, okay, say things, okay, say things, or why is it different. Okay, this is the thing that I would like to highlight, especially to our postgraduate students. When you discuss, okay, when you discuss from your point of view, or in our context, for example, in Malaysia or in Kuala Lumpur, okay, try to insert all these, for example, like from the cultural perspective, from the environmental perspective. For example, if those of you out there who are doing studies on plants, climate change, and so on, so perhaps you can say, I mean, things like, I got a different results. Okay, I'm just saying things. Okay, I'm not in that field. Okay, but if you're doing studies on plants, okay, you can also say, I mean, things like, oh, perhaps I'm getting different results from those results, even though similar study are done in America or even in Europe, perhaps because of the weather. If you have a tropical weather, so because of that, the plants react in a different manner. So these are the things. Okay, these are the things that we reviewers like to see. Okay, so you don't just copy what are the things that have been said in the Western countries. Okay, so we don't want this kind of thing to be, it becomes a repetition. Okay, it becomes repetitive. Okay, they have found A, you also have found A, they have found B, you have found B, and so on. So it should be more an argument kind of thing. Okay, of course, there will be some similarities, but of course, at the same time, there will be also some differences. But when it comes to differences, okay, and then the argument will be even more. Okay, why is it different? Okay, why your findings and the findings from other researchers are different? So this is the place where you bring all these issues. You have to bring your context, okay, the issue, the side issue, because the research has been done in a tropical country. Our climate is different, our temperature is different, and perhaps like in social science, you can also say, oh, the way we behave, for example, the way, for example, the Malaysians, they use the urban parks differs from those in the Western countries. Why? Of course, because we don't lie down on the grass. Okay, during summer holidays, during summer, of course, we can see many of these Westerners. I mean, they just sit on the grass and lie down and get sunburn and all those things. For us, I mean, Asians, we don't do that. Of course, we run and find for all these shades. So all these issues like shade, okay, the preference towards shade, we are more we prefer more all these shaded areas, okay, because we are staying in a tropical country. You don't go out there under the hot sun to jog. I know some people they do, but but many of us we don't do that. Okay, we even when we do leisure activities, we will tend to do it like under a shade, under a tree perhaps, and so on, because that is what is our context is. Okay, our context, our Malaysian context is about. So when it comes to discussion, try to put all these so-called, I mean, like local flavors to make your discussion even much more, colorful. Colorful rather than just saying that okay, the result is same like the Westerners. Everything is same. Everything is same with the Westerners and so on. So these are the things which adds in color. Okay, when you add the cultural perspective, when you add the climate perspective, when you add the weather, when you add all these taboos among Asians, these are the things which adds richness in your discussion. Okay, discussion. Because if not, then the reviewer will say, "What is so special about your research? What is so special?" Because we need this something special in order to be published. Because if you're publishing the same thing, so people, the reviewers might just say this kind of studies have been published before, so there's nothing special. So for example, like in our context, I mean, we are from Malaysia, we are from the Asian perspective. Try to add all these inputs, okay, in your discussion, which adds more flavor to your discussion. Okay, so these are the things that we, okay, reviewers look for. Okay, so these are some of the other points. Okay, for example, clarity in terms of structure, the quality of writing. Okay, this is also important in terms of the language. Of course, when we write scientific papers, you need some level of I mean, in terms of the language. I mean, it should be written perhaps grammatically, I mean, correct. I mean, of course, we are not writing something very flowery kind of thing. It's a very straightforward kind of language. So make sure that, I mean, it's a correct in terms of grammatically it's correct. I mean, that's the important thing. There's no need to write in a very flowery kind of manner. Okay, so the clarity should be there. Okay, and also relevance, okay, to the extension of the existing knowledge. What is the relevance? Is there any differences? Is it an update, or is it something an old thing that you're repeating again and again? Okay, and if you look at the last point, adherence to the editorial scope and objective of journal. Okay, so again is the issue of whether this paper, the paper that you have submitted, does it answers the aim and the objective of the paper or of the journal. Okay, if not, then perhaps it will also easily get rejected, or perhaps the reviewers might ask you, okay, you change, your paper is fine, your research is good, but perhaps you have to look at a different perspective. Perhaps they might say, okay, well, we want you to perhaps look from the planning perspective and so on. So in such cases, like for me, I would not reject the paper, but I will just ask the authors to just resubmit back. Okay, you have to resubmit back your paper. Okay, because it's sound. Okay, in terms of method, in research method, it's sound. So why not? Why you have to reject this paper? Okay, you only have to change the way of writing actually. Okay. Any questions before I move to how you respond to the reviewers' comments?
Yes, we have two questions, Dr. Sri. One
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Majid Asani. Majid, you want to ask the question? Mr. Majid,
Assalamualaikum. Yes.
salam.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Sri. Thank you for
Yes,
good talk.
yes. Yeah.
I need more information about open access journals. I want to know how can submit papers there and get accepted quickly. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Of course, some of the journals, in order for you to be these papers to be accepted, you need to even pay a fee. Okay, and it's not cheap. Okay, it's not cheap actually. Yeah, so I mean, it depends. I mean, it depends if you have the research grant and so on. Why not? You know, if you have a research grant, if you have the money, and then you are able to pay. Yeah, well, why not? You pay and get published. But even if it's an open access journal, they still have the review process. Okay, they still have the review process. Okay, the review process is still there. Okay, so when it comes to the review process, the 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 thoroughness of the review is still there. So you can't escape from it. It's not just okay, I just pay the money, okay, I will get my papers published. No. Okay, the review process, you have to still go through the review process. But of course, in terms of the time, okay, since because you're paying a fee, okay, perhaps it can get published even faster. Okay, and I also heard that all these, for example, the open access kind of journal, they also pay a fee for the reviewers actually. Okay, so as you know, like for the general journals, okay, we reviewers, we don't get any single cent. Okay, we're doing this for charity. Okay, for me, I love to review papers. Okay, because when I review, I get to even update myself what is going on in my own field. Okay, so it's good. But back to your question about all these things, yeah, why not? But you have to remember, your paper, even though you will pay a fee, okay, but it will still go through a review process. The only thing is you maybe perhaps you are able to publish it faster. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
And
Excuse me,
Yeah,
Dr.
next
another
question, yeah,
question. Another
yeah.
question from Zawiya. Zawiya, you want to ask question? Zawiya, are you there, Zawiya? No. Okay, let me ask a question. Okay, her question is about doctor, what is your opinion about sending the manuscript to Q1 or Q2 journal just to get their review? Lucky if you can publish there, but if rejected, we can improve our manuscript for some or other journal. Will the journal charge us when we submit the manuscript? Okay, that's the
Okay. My question is why you have to submit to the Q2 journal first? Why don't straight away submit to the Q1? You know. So I think to most of I think most of these postgraduate students, they have this perspective in their mind. Okay, Q1 is very difficult, Q2 is less difficult, and Q3 is even lesser difficult, and you know, and so on. For me, when it comes to scientific writing, okay, when it comes to scientific writing, doesn't matter whether it's an index journal or non-index journal. When it comes to scientific writing, you need to stick to a proper rules, okay, rules and also the content. Okay, it's similar. For me, when I review a Scopus paper or I review a Q1 or Q2 or Q3, it's same. Okay, I look for the same things. Okay, it's not that in my mind, okay, I'm reviewing a Scopus, tak apalah, okay lah, okay lah, I bagi chance lah, this is just a Scopus paper, so tak apalah, it's okay, I give some, so no, it's not that. For me, when I review papers published under Scopus or Q1 journals or even non-index journal, I know some of my colleagues and even lecturers, they argue with me. it's not fair, it's not fair, Dr. Sri. I mean, if it's corpus papers, perhaps you should be quite lenient. If it's Q1 paper, perhaps you should be more serious. For me, no. Okay, it's a no. Okay, when it comes to scientific writing, you have to follow a certain rules. Okay, this is a general rule. Okay, when you're writing for a scientific, whether it's an index or non-index journal, you must have a general picture. Oh, this is a scientific writing. You have to remember that you're not writing for newspapers. Okay, you're not writing for any magazines and so on. When it comes to magazines, popular writings and so on, of course, I mean, you have the freedom to say, very flowery kind of things. But when it comes to scientific writing, of course, you need to follow all these strict rules, format. When if you have written, your method section, you should have all these elements. Okay, whether it's an index journal or non-index journal, okay, you should have, for example, like if you have a site, you must have you must tell the readers, okay, where are your sites and so on. It doesn't matter whether it's a Scopus based journal or a Q1 journal, So for me, it shouldn't be any issue. Okay, whether you're writing for Q2 or Q1 or whatever. Okay, when it comes to scientific writing, okay, you have to stick to all these kind of rules. Okay, so that should be in the mind of the postgraduate students. You don't think that, okay lah, tak apalah, I mean, I'm sending to Scopus, tak apalah, I cincai lah kan, I buat je lah, I just write something, something, okay, very simple, okay lah, I just submit, janji publish. So if you have this thing in your mind, it's not good. So you're not training yourself to be a good researcher. Okay, so you must open your or broaden your scope. Don't just look into the aspect of I need to publish. I need to publish for the sake of my supervisor. I need to publish for the sake of the university. I need to publish for the sake of the ranking of the university, and all these things. Yes, I mean it has some outcome and so on. But you have to behave, as I said, before in the beginning of my presentation. You have to behave as a researcher. A researcher is a researcher, no matter what is your field. Okay, no matter what is your field. Yeah, there's no such thing. Oh, kita ni bidang ni, I'm from this field. Kita buat research lain macam. There's no such thing. Okay, there's no such thing. When it comes to social science or engineering or whatever, when it comes to research, okay, there's certain rules or criteria that it's similar. Okay, it's similar to whatever field you are and so on. It's similar. In terms of research method, it's similar. Okay, and you have to do literature review. Okay, social science have to do the literature review. Engineering students have to do literature review. You have your method section. Even we have the method section. Even those who are in the, for example, in other field, for example, languages and perhaps music and so on, they even have to stick to these rules. Okay, even though you're doing, for example, a research on musical scores and so on, when it comes to research, you still have to stick to all these rules. There's a method that you have to follow in order to say towards the end of your research, this is my finding. So in order to say that your findings are valid, is also based on your research method. If your research method is not so sound, so how can you, say that your findings are valid? So it's not the issue of Q1 or Q2. And if for example, if you have submitted to Q2, it got rejected, I know most of the students what they do. Kalau Q2 reject, tak apalah kita hantar Q3. Yeah. You send to Q3. If Q3 also get reject, tak apalah kita hantar Q4. Kan? Kalau Q4 pun reject, kita hantar Scopus lah. Okay. So don't have this kind of character or behavior. Okay, don't downgrade yourself. Okay, don't downgrade yourself. If you send, for example, okay, if you decided to send to Q2 journal, okay, when you get the comments, okay, what you do, you upgrade your papers. Don't downgrade your papers. Like most of the students, kalau Q2, the level of Q2 get rejected, tak apalah, kita hantar Q3 je. Without doing any changes, without doing any amendments, you straight away take the same manuscript and then send it to I wouldn't say a lower graded journal, but to Q3 or Q4 or even don't ever do that. I mean, if you get, you have to amend your papers. You see, what happens is that, if you get rejected, this is done by many authors, okay, even lecturers, okay. if when you send a manuscript to a journal, and if that your manuscript has been rejected, okay, what they do, they don't do any changes. What they do, they will just send the same thing back to another journal. So when it goes to another journal, there's high possibilities you might get the same reviewer. Because what? Because you are in the same field. Okay, for example, if a student from my faculty, landscape architecture, you know, if you send a manuscript to a landscape journal, okay, I was the reviewer for the first journal and I rejected, okay, because of some issues. Okay, and then what if these students send to another landscape architecture journal, and who knows, in that journal, if I become also the same reviewer, I will also reject, because because I know this paper, there's no any changes being done, there's no any amendments being done, so I will again reject the same paper. So the issue in here is not whether, okay, I send to Q2 first, kalau Q2 reject, okay, I send to Q. That's not the issue. The issue is if you send to a journal, if the amendments there's some amendments that you need to do the changes first before you resubmit your manuscript. That is the important thing in here. Okay, it's not resubmitting back the same manuscript. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Dr. Sri, we have two more. Do you want to proceed with your talk, or you accept another two question, or you want to?
Okay. Okay. Can I just okay. Sorry guys. Can I just go on with my presentation? I think we have a few more just slides to finish, and then I think I take your questions.
No worries.
Okay?
No worries. Okay.
So next is on okay. So how you respond? Okay. So if your paper had been reviewed and with all the comments from the reviewers. Okay. This is just a joke. Okay. This is I won't ask you to do the examples like what is in the slide. Okay. This is I took from PhD Comics. I think most of you are aware of. Okay. So this is just a joke. So when you get all these reviews, okay, it is very vital for you to answer each of the amendments actually in a very structured manner, okay, because this will ease the process for the author and also for the reviewer. Okay, so when you get all these comments, okay, for example, the reviewer said, okay, line 23 in your introduction, you have to change this. So you have to highlight. So what I do, okay, what I do is that you come up with a table. Okay, you come up with a table. Okay, so perhaps you have several columns. Okay, so the first column you can just cut and paste. What are the comments from the reviewers? The second column would be what are the amendments be done, and the third column will be, for example, rebuttal. Okay, rebuttal means like if you disagree. Okay, if you disagree with the reviewer's idea. Okay, so why you disagree? So that will be the third column. Okay, so I repeat again, the first column will be the list of comments from the reviewer, so you can just cut and paste, okay, and put, and what are the changes that you have done. So this, the second column would be the amendments that been done. So how you change. So you don't put things like, okay, for example, the author asks you to do some explanation. Okay, for example, what is the sampling procedure and so on. So you don't reply and just put over there in the table noted. Okay, this is not a very good kind way of replying to the author. You should explain in that table itself. Okay, what are the amendments being made? Okay, what is the sampling method that you have taken in your study? What are the sampling methods? So you have to write everything. Okay, you have to don't put all these things noted. I understand, noted and this. So this is not a very good way to reply to the reviewer. Okay, and if there's any of you, I mean the authors, if you disagree with the comments given by the reviewer, then you go to the third table where you put the rebuttal. Okay, I disagree because why I disagree, why I did not use this method, because why, because of some issues in the sampling size and so on. So because of that, I did not run this analysis and so on. So you have to argue. So that's a rebuttal. If you are not able to argue, I mean, please don't write anything, because the more you write at the rebuttal, the more you make the reviewer even more angry. Okay, so you have to make the life of the reviewer even easier and so on. So that's the reason when you send back your corrections, your amendments please come up with a very structured kind of way. Okay, come up with a table in a table form. Okay, then it will be very clear. Okay, so when the reviewers are reviewing your manuscript for the second time, everything is very clear in the table. Okay, so this was my comment. This was what the amendments done by the author, or perhaps this was what the rebuttal given by the author. So it's very clear. Okay, make the lives of the reviewer easier. Okay, so you see, for those of you, I mean, if you get a reply from the reviewer, okay, or from the chief editor saying that your paper needs some amendments, okay, your paper need to be resubmit and so on, okay, so it's good, okay, it's good for you. That's a good sign. Okay, first of all, it's a good sign. If the moment any of these journals they want you to resubmit, you know, with all these, of course, corrections and amendments being taken into account, it's a good sign. Okay, it's a good sign that shows that most probably your papers will be accepted once you have done the correction. So don't be like so down. Don't try to answer back the questions that are being imposed on you by the reviewers. So this is also, okay, this is also I mean, it shows the maturity level at being a researcher. Okay, we need to argue. Okay, we of course we don't just accept everything. So that's the reason we have a rebuttal column. If you don't agree with the reviewer, you should be able to argue in a proper way. Don't just say things. You know, of course, some of the reviewers, they can be also very harsh, but don't take it so very personally. But you answer back in a very professional way. I mean, that will basically shows what kind of researcher are you actually. Okay, if you're a researcher which is not very detailed enough, I mean, everything is noted, yeah, okay, you know, everything is being okay, I will do. So that is not detailed enough. Okay, if these are the amendments that are required by the reviewers, you have to write, okay, what are the amendments that you have done. Okay, you have done. Okay, why are papers being rejected? So one of the most common, as I said in the earlier part of my presentation, the most common mistake done by most of the authors are sending to wrong journals. Okay, sending to wrong journals. For example, in here I've mentioned, okay, like for example, urban forestry and urban greening, okay, and the Journal of Landscape Architecture and the Landscape and Urban Planning. If you look at landscape and urban planning, though I mean they receive papers about landscape studies, landscape architecture, but as I said before, their focus is more from the planning perspective. Okay, their focus is more on the planning perspective compared to urban forestry and urban greening. It's more a common kind of scientific writing. Okay, any papers related to urban forestry, trees, landscape can fit very well in this journal. But when it comes to Journal of Landscape Architecture, it's not only highlighting about research, but it's also from the design perspective. So more focus should be given from the design perspective. It's not only how you run the research and so on, but what's the implication of the design, I mean, in your research and so on. So if you see all these three journals, okay, I mean, sorry, because I'm from the field of landscape architecture and also landscape studies, so I'm only able to show the comparisons in my field. Okay, so these are the things that you have to look for. Okay, there will be many journals in your own field, okay, in your own scope of study and so on, but you have to look what are the aims and the aims and also the objective of each of them. This is where it must be very clear, because we don't want to miss any time. Okay, we don't want to waste any time. Okay, sometimes your papers goes to a wrong journal and it will be like sitting there for maybe 2-3 months, and then after 2-3 months you will get an information from the chief editor saying that your paper has been rejected because it doesn't fall into our aim and objective. So it's a total waste of time. Okay, so please look into the aim and the objective of each of the journals in your respective field. Okay, so everyone has papers rejected. Okay, do not take it of course personally. Like for me, most papers that I've rejected, of course, from the method perspective. If your method is not sound enough, it is wrong, okay, I will reject the paper. But most of the time it's not rejection. I will ask the author to resubmit back. Okay, resubmit back, because I think each of the authors, they stand a chance. Okay, we have to give a chance. Okay? Unless your paper is like so worse, then perhaps you can just reject it on the spot. But most of the time, I think we should give, as a reviewer, I think we should give a chance. Okay, we give a chance to the authors to do some amendments, because as we know, I mean, sometimes we researchers, because we are quite used to our daily life. I mean, you know, sometimes we feel that this small thing is you know, this particular aspect is very small to be highlighted and so on. But from the reader's perspective, it's important. Okay, sometimes the authors, they know that it is important, but they tend to forget and everything. So I think as a reviewer, okay, it's also our task to give a second chance, okay, to the authors. Okay, now you see, I'm giving you a second chance. Okay, I'm giving you the time to resubmit back your paper with all these comments. Okay, so if you get any of these, okay, comments that need to resubmit back your journal, please go ahead. Okay, please do your corrections and so on. Unless if you get a total reject, then it's fine. Okay, if you get a total reject, then it's fine. Okay, that's another issue. Okay, but if you get any of these comments, like please resubmit. Okay, please take an immediate action, and please do the submission as soon as possible. And another thing that I would like to perhaps share with you all is, before you submit, for those of you all who are still new in publications, sorry, in sending papers to journals, let your supervisors to read. Okay, don't send immediately. Let your supervisors to read. And I think there's a big role in here. The supervisors, some supervisors, of course, I know they just ask the student, okay, you submit. Okay, you just submit. You know, so I think that is not good. Okay, we supervisors also have to play the role. Okay, you have to read the papers. Okay, so I think the first or the best reviewers will be your supervisors. Okay, your supervisors will be the best reviewers before you send the submit button. Okay, so get it reviewed by your supervisor first before you even send the submit button. Okay, and if so, begin as if you are going to write a new article. Read the guide for authors of a new journal again and again. Okay, so again, remember, always, if you're not sure about this journal, what scope of are they talking about, look at the journal aim and also objective. Okay, here is a paper. Okay, we are already towards the end of our presentation. Here is a paper that I would like to share with you all. Okay, share with you all. Perhaps you can perhaps I think you can just get the title of the paper, and I think you can find the PDF version in the net. Okay, writing a scientific article, a step-by-step guide for beginners. This is a very good. I would say is a very good an article for those new authors or new writers. Please read. Okay, please read this paper. It's very good. Okay, it's very good, so that it has been structured. Okay, what to be done over here, what to be done in the your literature review, what should be done in the method section, how you write a discussion, and how you conclude your finding, and so on. So please go and look at this paper. Okay, writing a scientific article, a step-by-step guide for beginners. Okay, by Ekanot. Okay, and last but not least, okay, I'm just leaving you all to consider about this thing. If you look at this picture, okay, I'm not interested in what the paper is about, Dr. Jones. I just want you to put me on the author's list. Okay, so this is something for you to ponder. Of course, this is also another issue in publication, but I did not discuss about this issue. So I'll just leave for you all to ponder, okay, about these issues. Perhaps you can discuss with your supervisors and also your colleagues. Okay, so it's something to ponder. Okay, so with that, I would like to end my session. And yes, thank you to all of you. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. Thank you very much. We have 4 questions, Dr. Sri. That's a lot. Okay,
Yeah.
we try to attend. Okay, first question for Hamo. Hamo, do you want to ask the question?
Yes,
Mr. Hamo?
yes, I'm
Yeah.
here. Thank you, Dr.
Yep.
Sri.
Thank you.
I would like to ask about a review paper and systematic review paper. As a PhD student, which method should we conduct in order to fit the requirement of submission as a student? So should we spend a time with systematic review paper in order to get the research gap, or we just need to contact the normal review paper? Thank you,
Okay,
Doctor.
okay, thank you, Hamam. Okay, you need to understand actually the difference between a review paper and a systematic review paper. Okay, a review paper is normally is written by those professors. Okay, those who have like a lot of experiences in their research and or even in publications and so on. Okay, years of doing the same research, same topic, and then these kind of people are those who normally write a review paper. Okay, a review paper, but a systematic review paper can be even written by a postgraduate student, because when it comes to systematic review paper, it's basically a method. Okay, it's a method. There's a method of how you select papers, how you select the topics, and so on. Okay, so it's a step-by-step kind of method. It's a research. Okay, it's a research. So this can be done by any student, any postgraduate student. So that's the differences between a review paper and a systematic review paper. Okay, so as a postgraduate student, I would advise you all to start with a systematic review paper, because by doing a systematic review paper, you will get an overall picture of your scope of study. You will tend to know, okay, what are the gaps? What are the lacking in your research, or what are the issues? So you will get a general picture of what is going on. For example, in this particular research, like for example, like in America, in Europe, in China, in the Asian context, and so on. So this systematic review paper is also, it helps you to be a to be very matured in your own scope of study. And this systematic review, it helps you particularly for your Viva session, because during a Viva session, that's a session where most of us will be, they will test your understanding, your overall understanding of the research process, your overall understanding of your scope of study, and so on. So if you have done a systematic review, you can just say, these are the gaps, these are the lackness. I mean, these are the the things that perhaps we need to feel, or what are the conclusion that you can make, or some recommendation. Okay, so if you ask as a postgraduate student, I would advise start up with a systematic literature review. Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Sri.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, another question is from Haris Zain. Haris Zain, you want to ask question? You want me to ask? No, Haris? Okay. His question is about, can we rely on Procedia paper? That's the question.
I'm not against proceedings, but as I said before, if you want to publish for the sake of publications, you may publish in proceedings. That's not any issue. Okay, it's not an issue. But you have to know, when you publish in proceedings, of course, some of the proceedings are being reviewed. Some of the proceedings, they just take your paper and they just put it in your proceeding without any editing, any review process, and so on. So for me, a scientific material, okay, it is considered a good material when it is being reviewed. Without this review process, I mean, anyone can say anything. I can even say, the sun won't be coming out tomorrow. I can just say, you can say anything. So in scientific writing, again, I'm stressing the review process is important. Okay, whenever you write something, it has to be reviewed by your other colleagues or peers and so on in your own field. Okay, so this review process, it's lacking when you publish in proceedings and so on. So I would advise you, go to conferences and present. Okay, you present your papers orally. You just present. Okay, it's a good practice. You present. That not necessarily you have to publish in proceedings. Okay, because what's the point? I mean, if you have published, for example, in a proceeding which is not even being reviewed, I know there's also some of the proceedings are being indexed as corpus and so on. But a proceeding is a proceeding. Okay? You cannot say that a proceeding is a journal. A proceeding is a proceeding. Okay, and also you have to think back. once you have published in a proceeding, not many are going to refer a proceeding, because people knows that you publish in a proceeding. So of course, a proceeding normally it's not being reviewed. So it's so proceeding is like considered also a form of grey publications. The trust is not there unless if you're published in a journal paper. Then the trust is there. And people will even tend to cite more a journal compared to a proceeding. Of course, I'm not saying that you are not allowed to cite proceedings. Okay, in certain cases, of course, like for example, like certain studies, I mean, you can't find any materials. You have only proceedings. Then it's fine. But you shouldn't rely so much on proceedings and books when it comes to research. It should be more on the journal papers. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. Dr. Sri, we have 3 more questions. Are we okay? Dr. Sri?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Okay. Another question is from Yong Yin Mei. Yong Yin Mei, you want to ask the question by your own? Yong Yin Mei? Nope. Okay, never mind. I ask again.
Yes, doctor.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Yeah, Young here. Actually, I would like to check how to justify we have the good theory. Okay, for example, right, what is actually the boundary or the criteria to be included in order for us to justify as an in-depth theory? Because like sometimes people will say your theory doesn't sound like a theory. That is actually just a definition, something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
doctor.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you. Yeah. So for most, I mean, especially those social science students. Okay. That's the thing. I mean, in your first and 2 semesters, you should not stick immediately to only one theory. You should not stick immediately to one thing. You need to have like several options. Okay, so perhaps in the beginning of your study you can say that okay, my study can be related to theory A, theory B, theory C. Not only theories, even models. Okay, you can also rely on models, not necessarily must be theory. Okay, so you can say okay, your study is based on this model, can be based on this theory, and so on. But you have to do on in-depth reading about that particular. Okay. So even in your proposal presentation, you can also highlight. Okay, my research topic. I mean, these theories and models suits. Okay, but after going through all these the theories, and also you have to match with your objectives and also your research questions and so on. Which of these theories or models fits the best? Then you pick either one or two, which fits your research. So it doesn't mean that you have to make sure that okay, I'm done, I'm fixed to this. So you need to open up your options. Okay, you should have several theories or models initially, but towards the end, of course, you have to narrow down. Okay, then after doing a discussion with your supervisors and so on, and also in-depth reading about that particular theory, and you have to relate that theory. Is it same with your objectives and also your research questions or not? Then, because some theories, okay, for example, okay, if I give some theories, they stress more on the demographic information. Some theories, even though related to your studies, but they're not focusing on demographic information. But in your research objective, you need that demographic information. That is a very important part. So means that the second theory you can eliminate, even though it suits your study, you can eliminate. Okay, you can eliminate because it doesn't touch on the demographic part. But the first theory, okay, touches on the demographic section. So these are the things that you have to juggle actually in the beginning of you have to open up your thinking. Okay, don't restrict very fast to one theory or either one model. Open up. Okay, please investigate all these related theories and model. Then you finalize. Okay, so towards the end, okay, I'm going to finalize that I'm going to use this particular theory and this particular model for my study, because both this theory and models fits my objective or aim or my research questions. Okay, that's how you pick the theory. Okay, that's how you pick the theory for your study actually.
Acknowledge. Thank you, doctor.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Young. Another two last more question. Okay, another question is from Zara. So because her microphone is not working well, so the question is, Doctor, how to defend or write rebuttal without offending the reviewer and causing another rejection? Right.
Of course, as I said before, for the rebuttal section, okay, if many of you, if you're not sure, okay, but of course you must also have a stand, okay, you must also have a stand because you are the main researcher, you are the author, you know more than the reviewer, okay, you are the one who has run the study and everything, so you know more, so you must have a stand, okay. So to write the rebuttal, if you're not sure, I would advise you get the cooperation from your supervisor to perhaps reword the sentences and so on. Perhaps you can do it first and then you can show it to your supervisors. Is it okay or not? Is it harsh or not? Okay, but if you have a stand, okay, if you think that the comments given by the reviewers it's not correct, then go ahead. Then you should just go ahead. For example, I mean, if I would like to share, I mean, this was of course so long ago. I did a qualitative kind of study, and one of these reviewers, they asked me, why did not you put say or mention or so much on the number of samples. Of course, I mean, I'm not an expert on qualitative studies, but when it comes to qualitative studies, of course, we don't fix, we don't fix the number of participants and so on. I mean, it depends. Okay, it's also sufficient with just one respondent. Why not? It depends. Okay, sometimes we need to get several participants in order to what we call as the saturation level and so on. Once you're satisfied with the answers from them, you can perhaps stop. Yeah, it can be either 13, 16, 17, 21. So these are the things that you can argue. Some of the reviewers, of course, they have this kind of question, but you must have a stand. You must have a stand. But if you think that you're not very firm, okay, please discuss with your supervisor, because your supervisors will be also your co-authors. Okay, so it should be a mixed kind of contribution. The contribution should come from the students, from the supervisors, even the co-supervisors and so on. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. Another one last questions from Nur Rashila Rosli. Nur Rashila, do you want to ask your question?
Hi, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I am Sheila Rosli. I just want to ask a question about the research method. How do I ensure that a research method is sound?
How do you how do you assure? Okay.
Ensure.
Yeah. Of course, you need to, I mean, settle the things first. Okay, you need to settle with your supervisors and everything. What kind of research approach? But what are the details that we reviewers look for? For example, okay, again, sorry, I'm taking the example of a social science perspective. Okay, for example, if you're saying, okay, you want to survey this amount of people, who are these people? Okay, tell me more about who are these people. For example, you are saying that they're children. What kind of children are they? Are they what, school kids or those age between underage students, or are they teenagers? So you must be very specific. Okay, when you say your samples are students, you must be very specific. What kind of students are you talking about? Maybe age. You must give the age range of the age should be there. Who are the students, or who are the children? Okay, children, because when you say children, it's very broad. So when it comes to research, you must be very specific. Who are the children in here? Are they kindergarten students or primary school students, secondary school students? Must be very specific. And then also the sampling procedure. How do you pick all these your students? Okay, and the approaches. Okay, so people might also ask, why online studies? Why not face to face? So of course now we have we have the privilege to say that because of the pandemic and so on, we can't afford to have a face-to-face kind of approach. So it is understandable. So we have an online kind of approach. Okay, so don't just say things, but you have to even justify. Okay, that's the important part in your method. Okay, you need to justify why this method, why not that. you know, and why, for example, even the selection of your sites. Okay, why you choose only these particular sites in Klang Valley? Why not about other sites? Okay, why you are focusing only this particular site or this particular age group? Okay, so you need to justify these things. Don't just say things. Okay, I went and survey, interview an old group of people. You know, so again, all age can be also different. You know, pensioners or those, you know, and what kind of group of people? I mean, are they those old people who with dementia, or is it a normal group of people? You know, so you have to define even more in depth about your samples, your method of approach, and so on, and even sites and so on. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. Thank you, Rasha. I hope Dr. Sri answer your question.
And,
Yes,
and
thank you
Dr.
very much.
Fabian, yes. Just one more thing. Even when it comes to, for example, survey, when you run a survey, you must give a complete thing how the survey was done. I mean, you use what questionnaire, or if you use a questionnaire, even say something more about the content of the questionnaire. The questionnaire is divided into how many sections? You know, you have to tell all these details to the reviewers. If not, then it will be like, okay, you use questionnaire. So what is in the questionnaire? You know, so as a reviewer, I will ask, so what is the content of your questionnaire? You know, and it's even worse. Some even don't put in the appendix. You know, the question. Of course, some they don't want to show their questionnaire. It's fine, but if you don't have the details about the questionnaire in your method section, then perhaps you have to put in the appendix part. Perhaps you can show the questionnaire to the readers. Okay, then people can get an idea of what is the question about. You know, yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sri. Anyone, any last question before we end this sharing session? Any more? 1, 2? Okay. I guess everyone's have gained a lot of things today. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Sri, for
Thank you.
for your inspiring, motivating, and knowledgeable sharing. I like the idea when you said that students or people who start acting as a researcher, not as a student or what. So it empowers you, and if you have that kind of mind, setting your mind like that as a researcher. So we are at par. We don't feel like you are a student, I'm a supervisor. Don't be like that. Okay. All right, thank you very much, everyone. I hope you gained something today. Okay, also thank you to Dr. Sri for your time, sharing this knowledge, and also thank you to the Office of Research and Innovation from Dr. Yazid teams, okay, for organizing these sessions. Don't forget to fill up the e-certificate form, okay, for you to get the e-certificate. Again, and then last but not least, good luck with your study. Don't rush, just keep calm, keep cool. Everything's issue or problems have the solutions. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
Right.
Doctor.
No
Bye.
worries. Right.